All right, that should about do it, Charity. We got her all done.
The front yard looks great, but this landscaping is hard work.
Very hard work. We got the front yard all done, so let's go check on them in the back, because I don't know how they're doing back there.
Not as good as us. Those geraniums, awesome. Those are my favorite.
Wave petunias, those are beautiful too.
I think so.
I told you they wouldn't be anywhere close to done when we got finished up
No,
here.
we did all of that back there. Hey, oh,
Perfect spot.
now this does look, well, it looks good.
Well, thank you.
It does, but what kind of flowers you got there, Izzy?
Midnight Masquerade.
Purple.
Good job, Tony. Lovely, but you need some color. You need some color to go with that.
She wants color.
Yeah.
We're moving
I
an
do.
850-pound fountain by
ourselves.
And she's worried about a little color.
Yeah.
Oh, hey guys, what about us? Look what we've been doing. We built this whole deck single-handedly by ourselves. Okay.
Power tools.
Last nail, get it in there.
That's good, guys.
I think. What do you think? Is this perfect?
Perhaps
You guys
we
probably
should take
shouldn't have power tools.
Take
Well,
No power tools.
sorry. All right.
Can we hire someone?
What? Here, you better take
Don't
this.
hurt
We're
yourself.
dangerous.
Don't hurt yourself.
Well, guys, I've got gardening. I got the garden already, but I may have gone a little overboard with the Miracle Grow. What do you guys?
They look great.
Right?
Wait,
yeah,
that's
anybody want a
amazing.
fresh
I'm
tomato?
hungry.
He hadn't even planted it yet. But no, wait. We've all been working hard, especially Lonnie. Well,
Power tools.
what are you doing, Elizabeth? We've been doing physical work.
I know you've been working hard and it's beautiful, so I have to paint this. This is one of my hobbies is painting and of course flowers. So I've got to paint all these beautiful things. Geraniums, marigolds, peonies,
Orchids.
Tomatoes.
orchids, tomatoes.
This is a perfect spot to do this, guys. It is beautiful out here. So, hey, we got to open the show up. Let's get all our stuff ready, okay? Let's
do it.
Okay, now you're going to help us move it all then. right?
Sure.
Okay, you get that
I'll
far
get
corner.
the flowers.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Welcome to Between the Studs. We are Granite Ridge Builders, custom builders serving northern Indiana, northwest Ohio, and also parts of southern Michigan. We have been building custom homes for almost 2 decades, and we're really passionate about what we do. So join us today as we explore the processes, the trends, and also tips that characterize today's new home. Thanks for watching.
Tony, hold it straight. I want to get the right shadow line for that waxy leaf on the begonia.
I'm holding it.
Okay, guys, would you quit arguing? We got to start the show. So I think this is going to be a fascinating show, but let's talk about this first. Did you really grow that, Miracle Grow that fast?
I may have exaggerated slightly, but Miracle Grow is key to a good garden.
That's kind of what I thought. All right, we're going to start. Today, I think you're going to find this fascinating. We're going to be talking about landscaping, hardscaping, softscaping. It is probably one of the most important values you can ever give to your home. One of those is we're going to talk about is also gardening. Gardening is one of the fastest growing hobbies in the country right now. So I think you're going to find this show very, very fascinating.
Don't forget about herb gardens. People are growing those inside and out.
Great point. You're going to do a segment on that?
Yes.
Wow, thanks.
Now, Tony, you mentioned fastest growing trend. It is the fastest growing amongst my generation, which is millennials and younger. So we're the ones that are bringing gardening back. Now, I've been gardening for about 10 years. One of the things I love is it's a huge stress reliever for me. Plus, it's a challenge. Every year I try to do better and make a better, yield from that. And one thing I didn't anticipate where it's become a family activity now. My boys love to be out in the garden. They help choose what plants we put in the ground. And this year, they're very excited. In about 6 weeks, we'll be making ratatouille all from scratch from our garden.
Wow. Hey, now wait, Lonnie and I have a great story. About 40 years ago, our in-laws were gardeners. He and I decided to help garden. And here's what we figured out after an hour.
Yes.
We can buy a bag of peas for about $3, and it takes us about 3 minutes. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Not anymore, though.
Right.
That's true.
One of the really cool things about gardening is, when you see a weed, you see a dandelion, you're like, I'm just going to pluck that and throw it out. It actually has a lot of uses. You can pluck those out and you can actually eat those. You can turn them into a tea, stews, dandelion wine, high in vitamin A, vitamin C, and potassium. So they can be really useful as well.
Also, as we said, things are changing in these backyards. It's estimated that almost 70% of people who are planting things this year plan to eat from their labors. It's a little scary, isn't it?
Wow. And it's estimated of the 50 million acres in the United States, 21 million make up our front yards and our backyards. So there's a lot of opportunity to do landscaping. And like Luke mentioned, it reduces your stress. So people with yards and plants typically have less stress at work. They usually like their jobs more. And it adds to property value, about 15%.
And Elizabeth, I think that's why you're doing a lot of painting of flowers.
Yeah.
Because you've been under a lot of stress.
Yes.
We have a lot of specs. They've all been selling, and she's responsible.
Not only do we have that, we have a lot of options of what we can plant in our backyards. There's over 270 30,000 species of flowers that are out there, and 35,000 of those are just roses.
That's a lot of roses. I love some ivy. I love ivy that you can fill a pot with.
Yeah, great spiller.
Yes, not poison ivy. No.
Right.
It's not poison.
Sure.
This is English ivy. But did you know it's not only pretty, it has health benefits. It's an antioxidant, an anti-inflammatory. So if you want to go ahead and chew on this a little
I'll
bit.
be okay.
Yeah, it's good for you.
Well, and there is more than corn in Indiana, but corn is still a major part of it. And did you know that popcorn is the #1 use for microwaves? If you ask anyone, the #1 reason people use a microwave is for popcorn. And when those little kernels pop, it pops just as tall as me, 3 feet tall. And it gets really, really high up in the air.
Why does it always get burnt in my house?
Yeah, good point. Are you sure popcorn is a gardening thing, though?
Yes, because you can still grow it in the garden. And another interesting fact, did you know that the small kernels that are left over, they're called old maids?
Whoa.
I've been called that too.
Okay, guys, we got to get started. I know you're not going to want to miss this show. We have some tremendous segments, so stay tuned. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get our stuff.
I thought you weren't allowed to.
Yeah, actually,
Just making sure.
It doesn't have a
Or
battery.
is he saying he wants to make you an old man?
We're ready here anyway.
So Mike, we're talking about landscaping, and landscaping is basically visual features of an area of land and how they integrate into it natural things and also man-made features outside in your yard or in your property.
Yeah, Lonnie, and we're also talking about softscaping as well, which is basically just the plant material of the landscaping. You got your flowers, your shrubs, and how you can beautify the landscaping with that material.
Right, and I'm really excited because today the trend is less lawn and more landscaping, and also even this idea of being more wild. So that means I don't have to mow my yard.
Well, they're calling it anti-lawn, but you still have to mow your lawn, Lonnie.
Well, I know it's
Lonnie.
really important, and I know that landscaping is like the first impression. When somebody drives up, it's the first impression of your house, and it's even the first impression of you, the homeowner.
It really does. And landscaping can actually add 15 to 20% of the value of your house just because you have a nice landscape package out there, Lonnie.
And I know sometimes it's difficult for some people to landscape, so that's when you call in the professional, because it's really more of an art than it is a science.
Yeah, and when you're talking about a $30,000 to $100,000 value, it is worth it when you put that money into your landscaping.
At Granite Ridge Builders, we probably do 250 to 350 landscape jobs per year. And they range anywhere from a couple thousand to, well, the sky's the limit there.
50,000, yeah, north, yeah. So we have some great trade partners who put in some beautiful landscape packages for us, and we have a ton of model homes out there that have fantastic packages on them.
Now, Mike, my landscaping past experiences haven't been all that great, but I know you've been a landscaper, and you would agree that there are some principles and some guidelines that we just got to follow.
Absolutely. One of the big ones is plant placement, and then using the forms of the plant in the right space. So if you have like a pyramid boxwood, making sure that is placed properly in your bed. Weeping trees, we could also go with, the colors of plants as well, making sure that those are stacked up and layered well.
How about the number? I heard that you don't plant in evens, which is kind of odd to me.
Yeah.
Anyway, you plant in odds?
Yeah, the general rule of thumb is 3s and 5s. We want that landscaping to look beautiful, but we also want it to look natural, and even numbers just typically don't happen in nature.
And that's what we do at Granite Ridge Builders, with respect to streetscaping. The front elevation of your home is so critical, and we're going to go over those components with the customer to make sure we get balance and proportion right. And here's the stud tip: know things grow. Things should not be planted too close to windows or walkways because they're going to grow, or sewer lines for that matter. Yeah. Things are going to grow.
No.
What about there? Is that good?
Yeah.
All right, good. Well, this is Stefan. He is the landscape architect, the craftsman who did a lot of what you can see here. It's still in progress. He's working away. We don't want to take up too much of his time, but we need to talk about hardscaping.
We do, and really it is an architectural design when you're looking at everything, because it does get into how the whole property will flow. You can see that there's a lot of different elevation changes in the property we're in right now, and it's Leo's job, or people like Leo, to figure out the best way that they can make the stones, the rocks, and everything just kind of flow together into the property.
Now, we have some principles we follow when we're designing our houses, our architectural houses. Balance, symmetry,
Rhythm.
Rhythm.
There's all kinds of different things that they're using.
Yeah, those all carry over to the same thing with hardscaping. Now, done right, this can add about 20% to your value of your home.
Now, one big thing about hardscaping, a lot of people think it's just stones. It's not just stones. We're getting into retaining walls, we're getting into pergolas, we're getting into trellises, we're getting into some of the concrete sculptures that happen, we're getting into the overall look of the backyard.
Right, we can do verandas, gazebos, fireplaces, outdoor kitchens. Those all technically fall under the category of hardscaping.
One of the biggest things that we've seen lately when it comes to hardscaping and hardscape architecture is doing more and more fire pits, correct?
Yeah, a lot of fire pits. That's a very popular option right now. People love to sit out there, especially when we have our spring and fall weather here in Indiana. There's lots of opportunities for those fire pits to be used.
And the nice part about when you're looking at this, especially with new home construction, is you can have a wood fire pit, or you can take a gas line right out to where it's at and you can have a gas starter on everything to make it really simple.
Yeah, well, I think we either need to help Leo or get out of his way, so I'll let you decide which we do.
I'll tell you what, Leo, thank you so much for everything.
Everything's looking great.
I'm gonna leave Luke to help you, and I'm gonna leave.
Didn't you say we had to move this a few inches? Okay.
We've been talking about landscaping and gardening today, but not all of us are master gardeners, experts at landscaping like Mike. We don't have 15 to 20 years experience. We don't have trophies and awards. I mean, how big is that trophy case you got, Mike?
I've played sports for a lot of years, and I'm embarrassed to say that my biggest trophy comes from vegetable gardening. But anyways, you know, we're gonna let you guys in on some secrets here. There's a lot of resources out there that make gardening simple, makes landscaping simple. There's an app for that.
We all carry these around all the time.
So several of the apps that we have, there's Plant Me, Plant In, Planty, anything that you type plant is gonna come up with one of these apps essentially. But what it does is you can actually go up, it uses the camera on your phone, your tablet, whatever you're using. You can take a picture of the leaf, the plant, and it will come up with all of the information that you need about that plant. It'll tell you where it needs to be planted, what sort of sun that it needs, what sort of care that it needs, what sort of watering. So it eliminates a lot of that misconceptions, guesswork. You know, it makes planting and gardening easy.
There's another one, it's called, the one I have on my phone, it's called Sun's Path, and it tells you where the sun is, where it's going to be throughout the day, so you know, maybe you have one that just takes partial sun, you know where to plant that at your house. There's also ones that can tell you, give you reminders, alarms when you need to water those plants.
That's great for house plants.
It is, absolutely.
So let's go through a couple of the branches that we have here. So we have a weeping cypress tree. So that's a beautiful one that adds a lot of texture. This one, we have the tulip tree. Now this is actually the state tree of Indiana.
You see a ton of these around the state.
Yes, as soon as you cross the state line though into Ohio, you're gonna see a lot more buckeye trees than this one though, that's what I'm saying. Next we have here is the tri-colored European birch tree.
You see them behind us too, they're so pretty. Beautiful
color. And then finally, we have the southern magnolia. This smells so good. It
smells so good and it's so pretty. It's my favorite tree. I have one in my backyard. It's my favorite.
That's exciting, but I'm using this for my flowers. I am so excited this year. I'm gonna get the right flowers in the right spot. I can identify what's gonna be a filler, a thriller, and a spiller in all of my pots. This is a lot of fun.
Well, there's plenty of trees down the road here. Let's go try to identify a couple of them.
You do that, I'll do the flowers.
I got my app out.
All right, Mike, you and I are both self-proclaimed gardeners. Now, this garden here looks pretty good, don't you think?
Oh, this is amazing. This is one of the most well-manicured gardens I've ever seen.
Yeah. Now, gardening goes back to 15,000 BC, so it's been around for a long time. There's lots of different ways to garden, lots of different techniques people use. But at the end of the day, it's a fun hobby to do.
It is, and it's something that is rewarding. You know, you put in the work and you can reap the benefits from it. 35% of Americans actually garden to grow their own food. So that's a huge chunk of the population.
Yeah, and there's literally millions of new gardens being added every year. So let's talk a little bit about the technique of gardening, some of the steps we have to take to get to this point.
Yeah, if you want a garden that looks like this, you really have to master a few steps. You have to figure out how to plant the plants themselves. You have to figure out how you're going to keep water in there with mulch, how you're going to retain the soil and everything like that. Pruning is a big one. You have to make sure your plants keep the shape that you want. Weeding as well. You have to get rid of all the weeds in your garden.
Right. Now, we also have to worry about the soil. So
correct.
Soil composition. So checking to make sure it's not too high in acid, for example. So sometimes you do have to remedy the soil, and that's kind of that first step. So let's talk about planting. So Mike, what you have there is the start of a tomato plant. So eventually this nice vine-ripened tomato will grow directly on that plant. And once it's red like this, that's when you know it's time to pick.
Yep, and a couple of steps that we can give you here so that way we ensure that we have that sort of looking tomato. When you're getting ready to pull the tomato plant out of the container, make sure you squeeze the bottom of the container a little bit to break it loose. The roots grow through the bottom here a little bit. So with this root ball, you really want to break that root ball up. You don't have to be fragile with it. Once you get that root ball all broken up, you're freeing those roots. And then another tip that you can do is all of these sub leaves down here, all of these other little vines, break those guys off and plant this plant as deep as you can around the base of the tree.
Yeah, and then make sure that soil you're planting it into is not compacted. You want to make sure that that soil in the hole is loose as well. Then you give it a nice water, and then at that point you just keep up on the water, and fertilization is key because fertilize about every 7 days, you'll get a good yield. Now, tomatoes, most popular?
Fruit or vegetable?
Well, that's a good question. Technically, I think it's both. They classify it as a fruit. Vegetable, though, is how it's more used in cooking. But this is the most popular plant or gardening plant in the world, the tomato.
Now, hold on a second, guys. Now, I've been patient with you guys talking all about your tomatoes, but you know I'm more of a fan of Mr. Valparaiso and the popcorn. And of course, that would lead more into what I'm most excited about, which is always going to be regular corn grown right here in Indiana. It is the most popular vegetable here in Indiana.
Hard to beat good corn.
Right.
Telling
good
you.
Sweet corn. Ooh.
It's been around for over 9,000 years, and I bet you don't even know what kind of corn is out there. Do you know anything about corn, guys?
A little bit.
You seem a little corny. I don't think you probably know what I'm talking about.
Try us.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, tell me, what's Indian corn?
That's the corn that you see for like fall decorations and Halloween and stuff. Multiple colors?
Yeah, multiple color.
Can't eat it.
Okay, lucky guess. What is field corn?
Oh, field corn. I think that got the dent in it, and that's what we see mostly growing in Indiana, and that's used for feed for like animals. I've tried it, not very good.
Okay, lucky again. How about flour corn?
Ah, yeah, I know this one. Flour corn, it's a more starchy type of corn. They actually mill that down to make corn flour.
Lucky guess again, guys. Last one here. I'm sure this one is the toughest one. Sweet corn? How do you use that?
Well, we eat a lot of that. That's the best with butter, personally.
Oh, yeah.
But it's got a lot of sugar in it.
Well,
very tasty. That's what, most of the time when you see it in a garden like this, most of the time that's sweet corn growing.
Okay. Well, maybe you guys know more than I thought you would know, but still, I am the king of corn.
That looks like sweet corn to me.
Right out of the husk.
Right there, buddy. That's how you do it.
We should have put some field corn in there for him.
Here is your stud tip for today. Of course, many of us have spent a little too much time shucking corn. I got a little tip to make it a little quicker for you. Take your corn, put it in the microwave for about 5 minutes. Then when it comes out, you're just gonna give this a shot. And look at that squeeze right on out of there. A lot easier. Look how good that looks. You got your butter on there. A little bit of salt if you like. Go to town. Hot, hot, hot.
You know, Elizabeth, when it comes to landscaping, you have to talk about flowers because flowers are certainly one of the most important parts of a landscape bed or garden area.
That's true, Lonnie, and there's over 270,000 different species of flowers. Can you believe that? And 35,000 of those are roses. Now, some of the more popular ones are the roses, the lilies, the orchids.
And by the way, orchids do not need soil. They actually receive their nutrients from the air.
Interesting. And then, of course, there's daisies.
Don't pick the daisies.
Yeah, don't pick the daisies. Now, we have some beautiful flowers surrounding us right now, but one thing you need to know is annuals and perennials. That's important. A lot of people don't know these. Perennials come back every year. So typically it's something you're going to cut down and it'll grow back next year. Annuals is something you have to replant year after year. Now, a great landscaping plan has the combination of both.
Right, and by the way, we're talking about beauty, we're talking about aroma, we're talking about also flowers that can be used for medicinal reasons, and they've been doing that for thousands of years.
Right, and of course these bring a lot of color into your landscape as well. So when you're putting your plan together, remember you've got native plants. So those are things that you plant that You don't have to water much. They're not a lot of care. Sometimes they lose their leaves, sometimes they don't. It's important to know in your yard, because when it's December, you don't want it to look like there's no landscaping at your house.
Right, and they're not necessarily that expensive. And hey, take a bouquet home to your wife and just see what happens there.
Oh, Lonnie. So now behind us, way behind me is hostas, and I think we all have hostas in our yard. That's a good example of a perennial, which you're going to cut down when it becomes fall. But right here we have a lot of beautiful annuals, Lonnie, and look at all of the different colors that are brought in here.
And I don't know my flowers very well, but there are a number of them that are indigenous to Indiana and the United States. And let's go through a list of them.
Okay, Lonnie, our first flower is our state flower, and that is the peony. This is a perennial. Now, one recommendation, don't plant this by your front door because they do attract ants. Now, one of my favorite annuals is the marigold, and this is good for keeping the mosquitoes away.
Then there's the hibiscus and also the dahlia.
And then the geranium is a great accent in any landscape bed or pot. And don't forget the roses.
There are 35,000 species of roses.
And a few other popular flowers in our area are begonias and impatiens. Impatiens are great if you've got a shady area.
There's also sunflowers. Elizabeth, when I think of flowers, when I see flowers, it's time to have joy and be happy and to celebrate.
And I love flowers because they always bring me hope. Our winters are so long here in Fort Wayne, and when things start to bloom and I can plant my flowers, I feel like there's hope.
Let's go pick a flower or two.
There we go, another one down.
There we go. That should about do it.
Tell you, Mike, a lot of people don't get excited about mulch, but we're here to talk to you a little bit today about why mulch is so important for your landscaping. It's a big part. Again, it's relatively inexpensive, and it really does a big part of keeping things maintained. It's going to help regulate temperature for your plants. It's also going to help keep weeds out.
I know you say some people don't get excited about it, but I do. When I put some landscape mulch down, oh my gosh, it makes me happy.
It does, it feels great afterwards.
But it really does help condition your soil as well. So it helps keep your temperature down and water in, like you said, but it also will break down over time and it adds nutrients back into the soil.
You've got organic and inorganic types of mulch. So when you think of organic, these are types that you're going to have to reapply, but they definitely look, very, very natural. So you've got things like your chips, you've got straw, you've got grass and leaves, cocoa chips, newspapers, things like this, and even compost animal manure can be used for mulch.
Now on the other side of things, we have the inorganic mulch, which are things that aren't going to break down over time. Yeah. So we got our rocks, our slate chips, rubber mulch, which is extremely popular in parks and playgrounds. And then we also, people are really starting to use landscape fabric, like weed barriers, as a mulch, then it just suffocates the weeds from coming up.
And again, it might not be the most exciting part, but like we said, it does definitely feel great when you've accomplished it and you go back and take a look at the work. Not only are you curing all the ails that you've got for your plants, you're also making sure that it looks wonderful.
All right, Izzy, we got one more bed over here. We got to get these petunias and these canna bulbs taken care of.
All right.
News breaking right now today. Between the Studs, Granite Ridge Builders has broken the code to Colonel Sanders' 11 herbs and spices, and we found them all in this one garden.
You just wish that we'd broken the code because you're hungry and you want some chicken. We have not, although they probably all are here. Listen, growing herbs is so popular right now. People do it inside their house, they do it outside. I actually even have grown. The non-gardener here has even grown some. I grow mint on my back porch and put it in my water.
Okay, so her husband grows mint and puts it on the back porch and has it for the water.
I actually did it, and lavender and cilantro, two very popular herbs.
There's so many different herbs that you can grow on your own, though. You've mentioned a few of them there, but you also have things like thyme.
Yes.
You have things like oregano. You have
basil.
Basil's another good one. I don't know why I was drawing a blank there. So my main question, Charity, is what is the difference between an herb and a spice?
Well, an herb is from the leaf of the plant. The spice is from the seed, bark, berry, root, or bulb of the plant.
What would be some of your favorite spices?
Well, my favorite is paprika. Black pepper is a good one, garlic powder, of course thyme in a dried form is a spice, cinnamon, oregano also in the dried form, cumin is also a great one that people use a ton of.
Great for health. between the herbs and the spices that you can grow on your own. The main purpose of a lot of this is for the flavoring, for your food, for your water, for how you're going to be living your life. And you do get a true joy out of growing something for yourself that you're then going to consume.
I also like to make things pretty because my food doesn't always taste very good, so I got to make it look good too. I'm going to cut some basil so that I can at least make dinner look presentable tonight.
And I'm going to go get 11 herbs and spices, extra crispy for you?
Yes, please, thanks.
Okay, guys, we got to close.
Thank you.
And this was a great show, I thought.
I love this topic. I love flowers. I love working in the yard. It brings me so much joy and happiness. And, you know, these are pretty, but dandelions are ugly. And I always thought they were just a weed, but they really have some benefits. They have vitamins A, C, iron, potassium, calcium. And do you remember a few weeks ago we talked about herbs on our show, and I said you could substitute a onion with a tulip bulb?
Yes.
Well, did you know in Holland in the 1600s, tulip bulbs were more valuable than gold?
Wow.
Who knows?
Yeah.
And Mike, I think you're still eating or frying dandelions.
Every day.
Very strange.
That's what keeps his yard so clean.
Yep.
Don't forget, herbs can be used dried or fresh. And I think I need to replace my mint in my water with rosemary because it is known as the herb for memory and energy.
Oh, we all need that.
On that same topic, people who garden are 30% less likely to develop dementia.
Wow, Lonnie, we need that at our age.
270,000 species of flowers, which means if I plant one of each, I won't have a yard.
Now, we talked about how gardening is one of the hottest growing hobbies. You don't need a large parcel of ground to do it. You can just get simply started with a little pot, but there are some dates that you need to keep in mind. So peas and potatoes are the earliest vegetable that you can plant here in Indiana. Then early April, you can plant more frost-tolerant, species of plants. So we're talking more of your leeks, your lettuce, your spinach, cauliflower, broccoli, asparagus, radishes.
I'm hungry.
And then Mother's Day, that's the big date you got to remember. Once you get past Mother's Day, that's when you can plant pretty much anything you want in your garden. But don't be fooled. Every year we get one really nice weekend before Mother's Day and everybody gets excited, plants their plants, and then sure enough, Mother's Day comes. 2 years ago on Mother's Day we got snow, so your plants don't like that.
You're now depressing me a little bit. Now, it's not just a recent trend, though. If we go back in history, the ancient wonders of the world, number 2 was the Hanging Gardens of Babylon.
Oh.
So we're going way back that this was popular.
Well, and in America, 35% of Americans are going to be gardening this year. Guess what the 3 most popular things that they're going to be gardening? Tomatoes, cucumbers, and bell peppers.
I didn't hear corn on that list.
Come on, get out
And
of here.
popcorn for Izzy. But also, did you guys know that broccoli is technically a flower? Didn't know that one.
No, I thought I liked every flower till I heard that.
Okay, we got to close. Elizabeth, would you close for us?
Yeah, thank you for joining us today. If you would like to know a little bit more about who we are, what we do, and why we do what we do so well, please pick up the phone and give us a call. Better yet, stop in our door. We would love to talk to you.
Okay, guys, we have iced tea and lemonade.
Yeah.
Cheers. This is probably one of the better ones. We get to be outside all day for the show.
Enjoy.
All right, that should about do it.
I think we did a great job.
This looks great. What are we?
We better try that again.
We got to go a little bit more. Let's go. Yeah.
Well, because you can still put it in, yeah. I am sure.